All right, Samantha, if we're going to graph this particular function, we want to kind of think about, we got those two forms, vertex form and standard form. We could really solve this one with either one of those forms, but you know, if all things are equal and we can use vertex form, that's the one that I would recommend. And because there's no x term in this, we can actually write this equation so that it is in vertex form. When you're missing that x term, you could think of this function as f of x equals x minus 0 squared minus 10, and then it looks just like our standard vertex form equation, which is x minus h squared plus k. And if we do that, we can kind of see really easily, your vertex is at hk. We could just read it out of the equation here. So our vertex, got some lag here, there we go. Our vertex is at our h value is 0 in this particular case, and our k value is negative 10. We'll just bring that right down at the end. So we can just read the vertex x and y values just right out of our vertex form equation, which is pretty nice. It also tells us where the axis of symmetry is. So the axis is at x equals whatever the x value is from your vertex. So in this case, it's x equals 0. And we also know this opens up because our a value is 1. There's no x squared coefficient. The first coefficient here is an implied 1, so we also know that this quadratic opens up. So there's a lot of things here that are going to help us with the graphing and let us put this thing together. And when we're graphing in the computer, we don't have to do very much. We just have to graph a couple of points and the axis of symmetry, and we've got it. So let's look at that next. So if I wanted to graph this thing, we decided our vertex is at 0, negative 10. I'm going to put that in the middle of the table. And then if I was going to graph this by hand, I would do 4 points. I would do a couple of points to the left, like a 1 and a 2, a couple of points to the right, like negative 1 and negative 2, and I would plug all those values in to see what we get. But for the computer, the good news is we just don't have to do that much. We just have to do 2 points, and it'll graph. The first one has to be the vertex, and then the second point to get the parabola on there, and then we have to graph the axis of symmetry, and we're done. So if I plug that 1 in, I'm just going to do that for my second point. I'll have 1 squared minus 10. 1 minus 10 is negative 9. Okay, so 1, negative 9 will be a point on my graph. Okay, and that's all you need to graph the thing. So just go down to 0, negative 10 and plot that point. That'll be your vertex. Okay, and then go to 1, negative 9 with your parabola tool selected, and it'll fit that parabola in there automatically. So it'll look something like this. Okay, and then so you just need to plot 2 points, the vertex and one other point, and that'll be enough on the calculator. Now when you're doing your paper, your offline homework, you'll have to do a little bit more. And then the last thing we have to do on the computer is we have to graph that axis of symmetry. We decided it was at x equals 0, that vertical line before, and it's always just going to be a dashed line that runs straight up and down through your vertex. So in this case, straight up and down the y-axis will be our axis of symmetry. But that's a required part of the computer problem, is graphing that axis of symmetry. Okay, so hopefully that's helpful with a way to get started. Let me know if you have any questions.